This is typically how far I'll take something before I look for some feedback if I'm not sure about certain things. So I've done a couple of these in Rocky River, and what I can tell you about these frames is if you don't use an exotic hardwood like an African teak wood that is super resistant to thermal transfer, there will be some separation. The amount of heat that comes out from these is pretty high. So this is going to be an expensive frame, and you could do like a wire mesh insert. This pattern isn't necessarily what it would be, but I don't have the wire mesh pattern as a profile in SketchUp, so I couldn't show it. So we have to maintain this size, and I actually won't know how this is going to fit around the radiator unless we advance it to the next stage where we demo this out and we start to get a little more intensive site planning for the mechanicals. But since the existing unit is this size, this is probably very close to what it's going to be. The radiator's probably got some tolerance behind here where this unit would have an open back, and I would leave a nailer around the outside of it to secure it against the wall. So that's what these would look like. And I'm getting it pretty close to the footprint of what there is, but this sill that's right here goes right to the existing frame. So I would attach these with magnetic catches on the back side so you could pull it off if the radiator needs service. I like a little 1.5 inch thick top here. I would probably stick with that same teak wood here and then maybe transition to something painted above. So we can talk about the finishes as we advance through the design, but I'll get to what I'm looking for feedback on. What I've done for layouts like this before is a cord management system. And if you want to eliminate like any kind of power strips and stuff like this here, what I will do and have done actually on Lake Road close to you, I did a project for this guy, Jim, and we built this enclosure here and all the cords just fall down into here. So you could do a couple grommets like this, and this thing is actually hollow. So the underside of this just fits on the floor, and everything, sorry if I'm getting a little wonky on my zoom out here, but everything's in here. So you just drop your power strips and whatever else in here, it all plugs in here. And then the way that I did it for him was there was a wood top on here, and this was just snug. You can secure it with some screws, but if we cut it right to the distance or the width that we need to fit like this, it's snug enough in there that you can just remove it by hand. Now I can secure it with a screw if you want, but you just take that top, you unplug everything, and when I say unplug everything, I mean you just let the cords drop back down and then the top comes off. The only reason I'm positioning outlets here is because that's another alternative to transfer the outlets to the face, but then it just becomes more of the same where the cords are here. If you want the cords to drop down and be concealed, this little center piece here under the window is a cool feature to be able to do that. Now, this is where I'm going to seek help from you. This option, and I didn't put the shelves in here because again, I'm just trying to get the geometrical layout established before we move to a design that you approve for quoting. There's a challenge here because this trim that's on the wall is like 6.5 inches. So what I would have to do with a design like this is just cut it straight and then some kind of transition block for a transition molding to bed into that big piece of molding that's at the intersection of the ceiling and the wall. These units should always be 1 inch short of the ceiling, so you take out the deflection from the ceiling, and this transition molding is required to hide that expansion gap. So in this scenario, you could do shelves here and then have an open bookcase that reveals this nice wood top. Shelf, 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 divider, divider, maybe another one here. So you have sections in this open bridge above, and that's a cool layout. Now, there's an alternative to this, and I'm going to show that now, where, there we go. So this goes away, and the stacked bookcase with the small header goes away. And then there's this. This is a stacked bookcase with the tall header. That big transition molding that you have on the ceiling, you could bed it into here. I could match the molding, and then we could wrap it around and then continue. So the molding is already applied here, but we would find the profile, cope into what's on the wall here and apply it here, and then here this cuts into it, but it copes in here. So basically what I'm saying is you maintain this ceiling trim going around here. But if you do that, because it's 6.5, you don't have enough room for the bridge. So that's where I need my feedback is how do you feel about the upper section and the lower section and where I'm at now? And if I know that, then, this comes together a little more. So when I'm at this point, I'm really looking for feedback from you about what you want to see. And you could get it back to me in any way. You could get it back to me in terms of an email. We can do a quick phone call, notes, like whatever you think is the best way to communicate what you think about this so far.